George Stinney Jr. was an African-American boy who was just 14 years old when he was convicted of murdering two young girls. George was then put to death via the electric chair and became the youngest American to be sentenced to death and executed in the 20th century. But there was a catch. George Stinney Jr. didn't kill those two girls, and 70 years later he was exonerated. Unfortunately, it was 70 years too late. George Stinney Jr. was born on October 21, 1929 to parents George Stinney Sr. and mother Aim. He had four siblings: John, who was 3 years older than George Jr., who I will be referring to as George for the remainder of the video; Charles, who was 2 years younger; Catherine, who was 4 years younger; and Aim, who was 7 years younger. The Stinneys lived in Alkaloo, South Carolina. George Sr. worked at the local sawmill and the family lived in company housing, as was typical of small southern towns back then. Alkaloo white and black residents were